welcome to the shop and welcome to part 2 of Project Polaris. That's what I'm calling it. I'm sure you guys have seen the first one already where I went to my father-in-law's to pick up this Polaris trail, Indy trail, and found out that there was no engine inside of it at the time. So we're going to continue on with Project Polaris, also known as, for short as PP. And yeah, let's just dive right in. First things first, let's make sure that the power plant runs. So how do we do that? Well, if you guys remember in the last video, I had 2 recoil assemblies. This one here must be just for a spare because there's no rope, there's no handle. As a matter of fact, this one doesn't have a handle either. I have to use an older crescent wrench tied to a rope. Tied to the rope to try and get it to rotate. This one does also have the coil for the plugs, which is probably a good sign. But these Indy trails back in the day had a 488 Fuji motor, which were great motors. I had an Indy 440, which was just a slightly smaller engine. That one there was also fan cooled, just like this one. I don't foresee too many issues, but let's make sure before we do all that work and throw it into the frame. And how do we do that? Well, the simplest thing and the easiest thing you can do on a 2-stroke engine to make sure that the internals are okay is to pull the plug and just take a regular compression gauge and do a compression test. So let's do that right now. All right, let's pull this one over here. Loose. Now, a spark plug can also tell you quite a bit. I mean, just taking a look at the electrode, for example, you can tell if it's burning too rich, too lean. This one here happens to be in pretty good shape. There's a bit of carbon buildup on it, nothing severe, pretty normal. I mean, you got to remember too, 2-stroke engines will burn the oil that also lubricates the engine. So you are going to normally have, depending on the carburetor adjustments, some carbon buildup. Okay, that is not right. Check this out, guys. I mean, this plug doesn't look very good. This looks like pre-ignition to me. It got hot. I mean, you can actually see something stuck in there. Well, hopefully that's nothing severe, nothing serious. Carrying on, let's just screw in the compression tester. Very simply done. Make sure it's tight. Make sure your valve is good. I don't have the carburetors in place. Well, sorry, it's not true. They are in place, but there's no slides, so there's nothing intruding the air. Because your best compression test will be done at wide open throttle. So I'm going to do my best to stop the engine from moving while I crank it with the other hand. And we're going to give it 3 good pulls and see what the compression reads on the gauge. Oh, that's got some good compression. That's not even 2. That's 2. Oh, I'm happy with that. Okay, well that's odd. Okay, so I'm reading 75 pounds. Okay, you guys saw that, right? Usually that much compression would read somewhere along like 125, 140. That's pretty low. There's no decompression gauges on these things. I'm kind of baffled right now. Okay, let's try this guy. See if we get the same results. It could just be rings, and if that's the case, top end on these isn't too bad. We can just slap a couple of rings in there. But anyways, we got the gauge back reset. So that gives you a hold of this thing. Okay, that's one. That seemed quite easy. Uh-oh. Ah! You guys see that? I think my gauge was just bleeding off there. I wasn't getting anything. So let's put it over here so that nothing touches the button. Let's try that again. So let's go 3 pulls again. Okay, I'm not liking this. Really not liking this. Is that going up at all, guys? So I went from a lot to none. There is nothing on this gauge at all. Giving me the bad feelings, all the sad feelings of what could possibly be wrong with this thing right now. I'm just hoping there's nothing serious. Right now we're getting 75 and 0. Great. Well, seeing as most of these covers are loose, let's see if we can find out what's going on inside. Okay, we know this one is low, but that one isn't really my concern right now. I want to see what's going on inside this guy. Okay, so I'm trying something new. I'm actually going to give you guys an overhead view of what I'm doing. I'll try and get my big head out of the way. So let's zip off these couple of nuts holding the cylinder head on. See what's underneath. Well, these are coming off nice. Okay. Oh, no way. No way. Do you guys see that? Let me rotate this up a little bit. This is like the worst case scenario. It's horrible. There's a hole right in the middle of the piston. Oh man, that's where all our compression is going. It's just making its way back down the base. It's oily. I don't know if that, I mean, there was oil going through it. So, the important thing now is to figure out what exactly caused it to do that. Like, to me, I'm at a loss for words. So I'm going to say that it got hot, probably due to air. It probably went lean. So that tells me that maybe the crank seals on this side are bad. But anyways, let's continue on here. What I like to do, guys, is I like to grab a marker. And when I take some of these apart, you guys have seen me working on the Subaru before. You guys can check that out. It'll be at the end of the video. But I like to mark things. This way here I know where everything went. So I'm going to give this one a 1. I'm going to give this cylinder head a 1 as well. And then we're going to do the same thing for this guy, but I'm going to mark it as a 2. And let's see what we have under this. And what do we get? Hopefully not as bad. Oh, okay. I can live with that. Let's rotate this one to the top. Yeah, this one's nice and clean. It's not full of holes or pitting or any of that stuff. So that'll be just fine. I need to know now, what does the crankshaft look like? Because all that material had to make its way somewhere, had to go either out the exhaust or blow right through into the crankcase. So let's carry on with, I mean, we've got to take it apart anyways. Let's carry on with the teardown and see what the crankshaft looks like. Guys, I think I figured out why it was so stiff to rotate. If you guys remember, I was only pulling about 75 pounds of pressure, but this particular cylinder, the one that's got the nice hole in it, is also very, very stiff at the top end here, whereas a normal one would do this, where it would just kind of flop around very easily. Not quite sure. Sorry guys, I'm kind of doing everything at once here. Not quite sure what all this slime is on this piston, but the piston itself, if you clean it up, looks really nice. And this one, well, again, sorry with the camera angles, doesn't seem too bad. I mean, it's got some scoring on the side here. But more importantly, what I find really odd, if you look down the bottom there is a slew, like there's a lot of oil. Let me flip that over. Yeah, there you go. Now you'll see it. There's a lot of oil in there. We need to tear it down even more. I know it sounds funny to say, but I'm going to flip this on its head, and I'm going to take the engine plate off. I'm going to split it right down the crank here, because I want to make sure that the crank itself is in good condition. Now, I'm not concerned about the seals because I will be replacing those no matter what if I open it up. So, you know, such as this one, for example, I'll be replacing that one. But I want to make sure the bearings are in good condition, because that's what can cause failure down the road. And for those of you who are not familiar with how a two-stroke engine works, well, these two cylinders are essentially completely separated from each other. So there are seals on the inside on the crankshaft, which you'll see in a bit, and they completely seal off each other. The ones that are on the outside, the ones on the ends that see more abuse, are usually your culprits when it comes to this kind of failure. So let's remove the flywheel, because we're going to have to remove the stator. Then we're going to flip it over, pull this out, and see if we can get all the, I think there's 12 bolts that hold this crankcase together. We'll split it, take a good look at the crankshaft. Okay, so we got to remove the starter recoil holder. And that one. Now we need a puller. As it seems to be for this project, I can't seem to find my puller, so I'm just going to end up using a couple of screwdrivers. I don't recommend this, but I'm just going to wedge the screwdrivers behind the flywheel, one on each side, if I can find a decent spot without breaking the case. And hopefully, with any luck, with that pressure, well, I'm going to put the nut back on so I don't round off the threads. Okay, maybe I'll get, if I get a good whack on this, sometimes these flywheels will pop loose. Hopefully. Well, something's happened. I'm not sure if the screwdrivers just got loose, but yeah, that's not going anywhere. Okay, let's keep looking for that flywheel puller. Okay, so I still can't seem to find my puller. I'm really trying to get this done tonight, so I've pulled the fan off. I'm going to try the whole screwdriver deal again, but I'm going to put a bit of pressure right on the stator. You don't want to strike this, guys, because there is some magnets in here. You don't want them flying loose or breaking. And some luck, I can't tell if that's going anywhere. Aha! I won. Get out of there. Ah, there we go. This thing's got some pretty strong magnets holding it in place, so that's cool. But yeah, now we need to, I'm actually going to zoom in here, guys, because it gets a little bit important here. Before you pull the starter plate, what you're going to notice here, if I take a flashlight, is you got two bolts, or sorry, two screws holding it in place. And on this side, you've got timing marks. So you got a mark here, and it's lined up with the casing over here. Mark them to make sure that they are going to go back exactly where you've pulled them off, because that can change the way the machine starts, the way it runs. It can get you chasing your tail if you just kind of put it in there, because there are slotted holes, so be very careful with that particular stator plate. So let's pull it off. Let's mark it, then let's pull it off, flip it over, and continue on. So we've got this flipped apart, flipped upside down, but now you can see all the yumminess coming out of those cylinders. Yeah. Alright, let's remove this base plate and get to splitting the crank. Okay, so all the bolts are out and it's ready to split, but before we went that far, I want to show you guys what I found along this seal. This is the side of the cylinder, or sorry, the piston that had a hole in it. This seal should not have all this oil looped around it. So this is more than likely the cause, guys. So now we know. But let's just get this thing split. Alright, so the crankcases have a couple of nice areas where you can just grab a screwdriver here and you can kind of twist it, and with any luck, just like that, it'll split without having to mar up all of these nice machine surfaces. You want to try and avoid getting your screwdriver in here, because all you're ever going to do when you're putting it back together is put a very light film of RTV, or silicone as some people call it, and then that's all that's going to seal the engine. There's no gasket in that area, so you want to be careful when it comes to marring up those surfaces. Let's flip it back up this way. Oh, you know what, guys? I have completely forgot. It's been a while since I've done these, but you cannot split this without pulling the pistons off. So let's do that. So I've got my pick here, and I'm going to very carefully jab myself. Ow. Well, a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears never hurt anybody, I guess. Wow, that's a sharp pick. Let's push the pin out. There we go. So we're going to put the pin back inside the piston, because I know that one fits as well. I'm going to do the same thing with the bearing. I'm going to inspect this bearing real quick. Cage is good. All the needles are in place. No, this one I'm not going to be too concerned with. So I'm going to rip this one apart without having to make too much care into it. But I really don't want to jab my thumb again. That really hurt. There we go. Now something tells me I may not have a good luck getting this pin out. Yeah, just what I thought. And as much as I hate to do this, I'm going to have to use a punch and just punch out this pin. What the heck? What do I need, like a bigger hammer? I don't get it. That is just not moving. This is going to work. It has to. Got some wood supporting the piston, so I'm not putting any pressure on this rod. What the heck? Okay, this thing is starting to hurt my knuckles. That really hurt. I mean, should probably be wearing gloves for this. I'm not giving up. Now I'm actually pretty mad at it. So I'm going to be swinging for the fences, and it's coming out. There you go. Perfect fit. Oh, well, look at that. Chunks of pistons are flying around everywhere. What the heck? Just let go already. Get out! There you go. Was that so hard? Wow, that's worse than I expected. So, we already know that this is junk. I mean, look at the amount of metal on that. That's crazy. Well, I'm not exactly happy with this. Yeah, I just did that. Normally I don't get mad, but that piston hurt me. Let's flip this around now. And separate the halves like I was supposed to do in the first place. Lots of metal to be expected, right? The casings are in good shape. The oil pump is moving freely. What I'm most concerned about is this particular connecting rod, because with the amount of damage that the piston caused, how is this crankshaft? Well, you know what, guys? Surprisingly enough, the connecting rod bearing seems pretty good. I mean, it's going to need a good cleaning to make sure that there's no metal left inside. And this is that seal I was showing you guys earlier. Oh, that's why. I'm going to definitely zoom in on this. Because there was so much oil going through everything, maybe, oh, I'm going to clean all this up. There might be a little bit of debris left in this bearing. We might be able to salvage that bearing as well as this guy. This guy feels really good, actually. Actually, these ones here, they all feel pretty good. This one not as good. As you can tell, it kind of stops. So we're going to throw that into the cleaner, let it soak for a little bit. But let's zoom in on this seal. Alright, so this is the seal I was talking about. I'm not sure if you guys can see that right at the top edge there. If I turn it sideways, you can see the light coming through it. That is a catastrophic seal failure, and that would have been sucking in way too much air. See right that? That would have been sucking in way too much air, running way too lean, causing that piston to fail. So we found it. Now we know that we can fix it. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this segment. I'm going to clean up all these parts you see behind me and hopefully get some parts to replace these old parts, and we'll get it running. But anyways guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider subscribing. We'll see you next time.